Anidees sent me two cases to review. The first was the AI Crystal Cube that you can check out somewhere over here, but if that's a little out of your budget, maybe the AI5S will be a little less likely to Anidees-destroy your wallet. Out of the box, you get what you'd expect, and out of what you'd expect, you'd get some zip ties, user documentation, and the screws. The screws aren't labeled or in their own designated little baggies, which basically means suck on Anidees nuts. The aesthetic is similar to what you'd see in a fractal design case, with the simplistic clean look and the side ventilation on the perimeter of the front panel, which proudly boasts a brushed metal design. And so here we see the fractal Anidees. With its steel and plastic construction at a mere 13.14 pounds, this mid-tower stands at 18.5 inches tall, 8.6 inches wide, and 16.93 inches deep. Motherboard support is limited to micro ATX and ATX, but standoffs do come pre-installed, so that's always good to see. Internally, it's got 8 expansion slots, a decent size cutout in the motherboard tray, support for CPU coolers up to 6.89 inches tall, graphics cards up to 13.3 inches long, a cable management shroud with an opening thinner than my receding hairline, room for up to 9 SSDs according to the Anidees website, but I could only manage to find 7. 2 behind the motherboard tray, 3 more if you throw your hard drives away, and 2 on top of the power supply shroud. 5 3.5-inch drives, 3 neighboring the power supply that can be installed toollessly, and 2 on top of the power supply shroud where you could put your SSDs. 3 120mm fans or 2 140mm fans, or a 240 or 280mm radiator in the front, 2 120 or 140mm fans or a 240mm radiator up top, and 120 or 140mm fan in the rear. Anidees includes a 120mm white LED fan in the back and 2 120mm fans pre-installed in the front, accompanied by a fan hub and controller with settings for off, low, and high. Now let's have a listen to Anidees. You can find the fan controller on the top I/O, buddying up with headphone and microphone jacks, the power button, reset button, USB 3.0 and USB 2.0 ports. You'll also find dust filters for the front, magnetic and removable by first pulling this front panel out through the bottom. The back, removable by, well, the back. And the top, which is held in place magnetically. Now that most of the details are out of the way and I've got you all bothered and hot, let's talk about temperatures. Telling all fans to spinning top it like it's hot. Using the i7-5820K processor, clock at 4.2 GHz at 1.3 volts with an ambient temperature of 24 degrees Celsius, we see an average core temperature of 68.5 degrees Celsius after running Intel burn test for an hour. Comparing this to the AI Crystal Cube, the airflow performance is actually pretty good. You could even say the test was a breeze for this case. Now it's time to reveal the skeletons in the basement, which this case does have, by the way, though it doesn't seem to be too fond of power supplies. Kind of a tight fit. The next thing I noticed was this odd nub thing on the front panel. I ended up intentionally snapping it off. I feel like I've seen this before in other cases, but I can't for the life of me figure out what it's supposed to do, other than rape my dust filter and stop one of my front intake fans from doing its job. While on the topic of cooling, the top doesn't officially support a 280mm radiator, but it does look like you can get one to fit. My issue here was RAM and 8-pin CPU clearance. Using G-Skill's Ripjaw's 4 DIMMs by fractions of a centimeter, I couldn't top mount my 280mm radiator because my RAM wasn't short enough. Speaking of short enough, those case feet though. They only elevate the case by about 1/4 of an inch, so I wouldn't recommend leaving it on a thick carpet. This also introduces some other minor inconveniences, like accessing the rear dust filter, which tends to slide a little too enthusiastically towards the inside of the case, and removing the front panel, where my clubbed caveman-esque fingers can't easily fit under. Speaking of caveman, installing drives into the toolless brackets feels a little primitive as they need to be kind of flexed to do their job. And while on the topic of drive mounting, none of the SSD brackets are toolless, and the brackets in the back of the case are the same as the ones featured on the top of the shroud, which are designed to carry 2.5 or 3.5-inch drives. The brackets behind the motherboard tray won't be able to accommodate hard drives due to the clearance between the motherboard tray and the side panel, so it would have made sense to me to make these brackets smaller to better fit SSDs, which would allow for some more cable routing options. Speaking of cable routing, this case was actually pleasantly surprising, if you're not using the bottommost hard drive bay. Removing that allows for the storage of excess cables, and Anidees provides you with a healthy number of tie-down points and enough space to work with in this cable highway hotspot. However, this is the bad section of the video, so we have to talk about something disappointing. The cable cover I mentioned earlier has a really thin opening, making it a little difficult to get the 24-pin cable through, but more importantly, not allowing the USB 3.0 cable to connect to any header that points towards the front of the case, as opposed to perpendicular to the motherboard. The cable's rigidity, in addition to the shallowness of the cable shroud, put a concerning amount of force on the USB 3.0 header. Though most of these cons are fairly minor, this still leaves much to be desired. And despite this, it's not a bad case. You get some pretty decent support at the expense of some conveniences that you may not need all that often anyway, since most of my issues came from building in the case, which is something most people only do once every few months or even every few years. And I understand that most of these inconveniences stem from keeping production costs down. Which brings us to the price. Considering the case comes in at $70 on Amazon, are these shortcomings worth it to you? If we look at a case like the Phanteks Eclipse P400, which can be found for around $80, we see this $10 premium gets you some similar features like some pretty competitive radiator support, and then some like support for motherboards up to eATX form factors, RGB LED accents, and a tempered glass side panel, though it does lack the storage support that the AI5S boasts. If you like that super clean look, this case has got your back. If you want something a little flashier, I'd suggest going for the Phanteks P400, but appearance is highly subjective, and at the end of the day, you make your choice based on what you need and what you like to stare at when you're at your desk. What? Your monitor? No, that can't be right. So that's all I have to say about that. Like, dislike, comment, subscribe, share, leave me questions if you've got them. Links to buy are in the description if this case works in your case. The first is my Amazon affiliate link, which will give me a small kickback at no additional cost to you if you think I did a good job. But there's a regular Amazon link just a bit below that if you deem me unworthy and think I can live without food. Thanks for watching, my name is Steven and I am ALittleDIMM. Bye bye. Anidees sent me two cases two cases to review. That would've worked too. Man, suck on Anidees nuts. I really wanted to use that in the last video, but I couldn't find a spot to put it. So here it is. Which proudly boasts a brushed metal finish. Design. Damn it. Fractal Anidesign. That doesn't flow as well as I was hoping it would, actually. It came out better on script, and in my head, and pretty much everywhere except on video. Magnetic and removable, magnetic and removable, but removable. By the time I retire from doing everything, I'm gonna be really good at saying words that are not hard to say. You'll also find dust filters for the front, telling all fans to spinning top it like it's hot, using the with an ambient temperature of, I'll fill that in later. I put in like spacers to leave myself room to do the temperature testing, but I didn't do that yet. And Anidees provides you, that just reminded me, I remember seeing the documentation for Anidees, and I'm pretty sure there's an accent over the first E, which I think means Anidees, not Anidees, which makes sense because their website says that their name comes from the words an idea, then they pluralize it to be Anidees, which doesn't grammatically make sense, but not really the point. And then they said they took like the Greek word or something, so it becomes like Anidees. I don't know. I might have been pronouncing Anidees wrong the whole time. Sorry. Disappointing. That was hard to get out. This still leaves much to be desired. This is getting harder and harder as I go.